it's a nice old tale, the one about alive or dead, and the way the great teacher just won't say. And those things you have to work out for yourself. So, and in other words, to hold yourself against them, and the universe works them out for you. The universe, somehow they reveal themselves in some way. Jung said this great thing about problems, which you're not the first person to say, but which is that you can't actually, if you notice that you can't ever really solve a problem if you have a problem. So, and so, because the opposition of alive or dead, yes or no, just like is always there in the way. And so, but what happens is if you're close to it and sort of look at it from all angles or let it into your heart, then somehow your point of view changes and it's not a problem anymore. It's something else like that, and I think somehow the whole question of what is the influence of the past, what is the influence of history, what did we inherit, what can we use, are we angry with it? There's always someone who gets really angry when we do an ancestor retreat. So, that sort of thing. I get these few emails with like smoke coming out of the computer screen, and the and because it's sort of it's a tricky thing, ancestors, and it's easy to feel like they mistreated you or you didn't live up to them or all those kind of things you can feel. Or I wish I wish I wish they'd given me the house instead of my useless sister or something like that sort of thing. So there's the inheritance question and things like that. So, but the alive or dead is its own kind of inheritance question. What is the secret of life? What is the secret of life? And so I have lots to say about that, I suppose. One of the things is that I think there are different stages in life, but if you can orient towards those great questions, where you're going to be okay. And particularly as life goes on, then either you've made it a life in a way, you found a partner and decided what gender you were and all those kind of things, and whether you have kids or not and stuff like that, and so you're and so then there's the great questions of how do I stand against infinity becomes important. And the ancestors happen in that way. So like uh, I put, and sometimes I try to get related to an ancestor because I don't feel very related to them. So I put the Hakuin Yasutani's photo is up on the far right from your point of view. There, the shaved head guy with the big ears like jug handles, as many people have mentioned. And I kind of never felt I liked him very much, but I'd never met him. And Dan Morris, who sat with us and died, recently, has now become an ancestor. He sat with him and sent me that photo. He took that photo and sent it to me. So, or somebody took that photo and he got it and he sent it to me. And I had an interesting dream about Yasutani once because he is in our lineage, and I had a dream that, having never thought of him for like 20 years, and suddenly I had this dream, and we were walking in the street, and we're somewhere in some city, sunlit city somewhere, and it could be Japan, it could be Honolulu, and we're with people, and he says, "Oh, you're Tarrant. I want to talk to you." And, and I said, "Oh, very good. We'll make a time." And then that was it. That was the dream. That was the talking that happened. And sometimes that's what you have to. That's enough. That's enough for an ancestor. I got a visit from Yasutani. So, in some way, that means he's in my lineage. Whatever I think of him and complaints I have about him and stuff, and things like that. And so people always have multiple sides, and they'll, one of the things about the dream world and looking at the ghosts and the underneath of things is that you'll see another side of things. And one of the sides of him, he was supposed to be very strict and difficult, and warmongering, and but when Aiken was kind of clueless Zen student and took his wife to session at Ryutakuji, at the Dragon Temple at Ryutakuji with Soen, and we got up very, very early in the morning and sat really hard and got almost no sleep, and that was his honeymoon. He didn't really tell his wife. She just said they're going to visit the Zen temple. So, and I guess they got over it eventually. But Soen said, well, what you need to do is go and see Yasutani. And so he went to Yasutani, and it was really different. There was a living room, and you sat around the living room and did some zazen and had tea, and there was a cat that wandered around and people stroked it. And so that was Yasutani. So that's another. We have both those spirits in our lineage, So, and he was very kind to both Anne Aiken and Robert Aiken. So there's that kind of thing. So, and then that funny little dream. He visited me in a dream and said he wanted to talk to me. And either that was talking to me, or I'm still waiting, or now I'm talking to him right now with you. So there's a kind of wonderful thing about the way ancestors, you can't sort of, in a way you can't define what you'll get when you meet them. So in a retreat like this, you can't go in with a particular goal. I'd like to resolve this question, or I'd like to, you can, but the thing is that if you just, it's like a koan, if you start hanging around with tradition, it will reveal itself to you in some way rather than telling you what it is, before, rather than you telling it what it is, it will reveal itself to you. And sometimes those things are great, and sometimes there's still questions. Anderson Cooper has a really interesting article or interview in the New Yorker. I was thinking about that and interviewed Laurie Anderson. And she said this great thing about how he asked her, well, what do you think happens when you die? And she said, well, I don't know. I think we become something else. Like, I didn't know that Václav Havel became an airport, but evidently he has, because that's the name of the airport in Prague now. And I had an old friend and mentor who became a bridge in Sydney Airport. Uduru Nunako was her name, Aboriginal, Indigenous woman that, I knew for a brief, intense period very well, and she was one of the pioneers of land rights and things. But also, I have a story about her that I think is relevant here too. It's not about becoming a bridge in Sydney International Airport, but it was more like, I remember I was visiting her, and she lived in a tent on the beach, like a big tent on the beach in the subtropical North Stradbroke Island, and she showed me this necklace she had, which was handmade of bush materials, and she said she was really moved, and she said, strange, but this is a secret men's initiation necklace, and one of the great old shamans just gave it to me because he said, what I'm doing, I need the help of everybody. So somebody up in the far north in the bush gave it to her out of appreciation, and felt like the old rules about keeping certain things hidden and so on didn't apply anymore, and she had tears in her eyes, and so the ancestral thing came through to her that way, and it was, I think it probably helped her, she became famous, and in some sense helped the cause, in a non enraged way, in a generous kind of way, and So that's one thing ancestors can change their gifts, I suppose. That's the sort of thing that was a gift only passed from men to men or women to women, not that sort of thing, but cross to cross. And the other thing from Anderson Cooper is that his father died relatively young of medical issues, and his brother killed himself, and so there was just him and his mum lived very long, and then when she died relatively recently, a couple of years ago, then he had to clean out her apartment, which had everything in it of her whole rich, amazing life. And he said one of the things, for example, there was a whole box of his father's belts. so she couldn't throw out her husband's belts when he died. And the interviewer said, "Well, what did you do with them?" He said, "Nothing, they're still in the box. I haven't worked out what to do with them." And that's sort of one of those wonderful things, the texture of something that someone wore, that's something to do with ancestors too. Like this, I don't know if you can see this thing, but it's I've tied it in so it won't fall down, but it's brass and very ebony and ivory, and calibrated. It was made in about 1840 or something, and it's a ship's navigation instrument, so that's been around Cape Horn and all those things. And one of my grandfather's mentors gave it to him, and he in turn gave it to me, and he took me out on the streets in the little city where I grew up in Launceston. We'd stand out in the street on a dark night, and he'd take sights and work out our latitude, certain things with it. He'd work out latitude with it, and he thought it was important to me to know that, and I at the time I thought, oh well, that's great. Maybe I'll go around Cape Horn or something like that, But yeah, I think I came to the notion fairly young. He thought it was important to have the disciplines of navigation. And so, in fact, that's what we do. That's what we're doing here today, meditation. To orient towards the infinite seems very important.